The government submits a report on district council review to the central authorities. Taiwan will reopen its doors next week to Hong Kong and Macau visitors traveling on an individual basis. And a national state of emergency in New Zealand after a storm battered the country's North Island. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The SAR government has begun reviewing the district councils and submitted a report to the central government. It's understood the preliminary plan is to keep some directly elected seats, but there are no concrete plans yet on whether the appointment system will be reintroduced. Jackie Lin reports.
District council elections will be held around the end of this year. Back in 2019, amid the height of the anti-extradition bill movement, district-level elections with directly elected constituencies garnered an unprecedented turnout rate of 72%. 17 of the city's 18 districts were dominated by councillors from the opposition camp. Earlier, the chief executive vowed to review past failures of the district councils and roll out revamp plans. The latest to take note of the situation is the State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office. Head of the office, Sha Bao-Long, recently met with representatives of Hong Kong society, taking views about the latest government policies and the administrative review of the SAR's District Council. It's understood the SAR government has summarized the opinions from different sectors of society on the reforms over the district councils and submitted a report to the central government. Suggestions include keeping part of the directly elected seats. The government said the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau and the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau have commenced a review on district administration as instructed by the chief executive. That's to ensure they conform with the basic law and adhere to the principle of patriots administering Hong Kong at the district level. It's understood the relevant administrative reviews of the district councils will be unveiled in the second quarter this year. Amendments to the district council's ordinance have to be scrutinized at the legislature before coming into effect. Jacqueline, TVB News.
Speaking to reporters today, Chief Executive John Lee said the government will continue with national security legislation under Article 23 of the Basic Law, aiming to complete the process within this year. He also emphasized that all parties in Hong Kong have the responsibility to protect national security. Christy Khan reports.
Speaking ahead of the weekly Executive Council meeting this morning, Chief Executive John Lee said his administration has no intention to alter the previously set time frame for enacting national security laws under Article 23 of the Basic Law.
On legislating for Article 23, I have not changed my position. The SAR government has the duty to legislate for Article 23 as soon as possible.
Lee added that the legislation is set to be introduced within this year or by next year. Lee made the remarks after pro-Beijing political heavyweight Lo Man-tun recently wrote an article in a newspaper that the current year is not the suitable time for legislating Article 23. Lo said the city should focus on rebooting its economy instead. Meanwhile, the Development Bureau said on Monday that the Lands Department had added national security clauses to land sale and short-term lease documents in Hong Kong. The move allows the government to suspend leases or disqualify any bids because of national security concerns.
The introduction of national security factors in our sale of lands is an obvious thing that is in accordance with our responsibility in protecting national security. Note that representatives from the property sectors have indicated that they are in support of discharging that responsibility. And I must emphasize that protecting national security is the responsibility of the whole region, the whole Hong Kong special administrative region. And everybody should have such a responsibility.
Asked if the city's mask mandate will be lifted anytime soon, the chief executive said he will consider the possibility after consulting relevant parties.
I have said it many times that after the winter surge, then I will be seriously considering what to do about the masking requirement. and I will be listening to the opinions of the medical experts and consultants, and also the views of Secretary for Health.
Still, Lee stopped short of providing a clear timeline for scrapping the mask mandate. Christy Khan, TVB News.
After a 3-year hiatus, Hong Kong and Macau residents can apply for independent travel in Taiwan from next Monday. The Taiwan Mainland Affairs Council announced that it will resume processing entry applications by Hong Kong and Macau visitors starting next Monday. People will have to apply for an online visa or entry-exit permit at the online application system for overseas persons of the Immigration Department before traveling to Taiwan. But mainland tourists are not included in Taiwan's latest entry relaxation. Lawmaker Reverend Peter Kuhn said Taiwan's refusal to grant an entry visa to Chan Tong-kai, a murder suspect in the death of his girlfriend in Taiwan in 2018, remains an unresolved issue. This as Taiwan authorities announced the resumption of individual travel for Hong Kong and Macau residents to the island from Monday. In a press conference, Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council reiterated that Taiwan's stance on handling Chan's case remains the same, saying it is not a visa-related issue. However, legislator Peter Kuhn said he believes the case can be solved if Taiwan agrees to grant Chan an entry visa, allowing him to go to the island and hand himself over. Kuhn said Chan's wish to surrender has not changed. Overseas, New Zealand has declared a national state of emergency for only the 3rd time in its history after Cyclone Gabrielle battered the country's north, causing widespread flooding, landslides, and huge ocean swells. People have to be rescued and flights have been canceled as the North Island experiences some of the worst conditions most people have ever seen. David Garrett has the latest.
New Zealanders had been told to brace themselves for bad weather, but few expected to see wild scenes like this. Overnight, Cyclone Gabrielle hit Auckland and other parts of the North Island with ferocity. Flash floods made it tough for emergency services to reach people. Some residents had to take to their rooftops in torrential conditions so they didn't get swept away. People tried to get loved ones and their pets out of harm's way.
This has the potential to be an unprecedented event. It is affecting many regions and many districts, and it's asking a lot of people. It also speaks to the commitment and dedication of our frontline responders.
As dawn broke, the scale of the devastation was becoming apparent. Cars left abandoned, surrounded by floodwater, trees lying on roads, their roots ripped out of the ground. Areas around the country's biggest city, Auckland, were also hard hit, with power cuts throughout the region. Many people had to evacuate their homes. The country's leader addressed the nation.
Cyclone Gabrielle is the most significant weather event New Zealand has seen this century. The severity and the breadth of the damage that we are seeing has not been experienced in a generation. This morning we declared a national emergency for only the 3rd time in our history.
The clean-up operation has already begun. Families returned to homes full of water. Others tried to clear debris from roads and looked out over fields that looked like lakes. Some farmers have lost livestock. This resident in Hawke's Bay in the east of the North Island captured the mood of the nation.
Really, you know, like the thunder and lightning and everything last night was just horrific. So, but the devastation is just, it just makes you want to cry, to be honest.
It will take many days before the true cost of the storm is known. Cyclone Gabrielle is likely to move to the south part of New Zealand now. Meteorologists are predicting the worst of the weather should have passed. Everyone is hoping that is the case. David Garrett, TVB News.
The Philippines today filed a diplomatic protest calling on Beijing to ensure its vessels cease aggressive activities. This comes after Manila accused China's Coast Guard of trying to block one of its ships in the South China Sea using a laser. The United States said it would defend its treaty ally if Philippine forces come under armed attack in the disputed region. Philippine Foreign Affairs spokesperson Teresita Daza said China's acts of aggression are disturbing and disappointing, as they came so soon after last month's visit to Beijing by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. During that meeting, Marcos and President Xi Jinping agreed to manage maritime differences through diplomacy. On Monday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said the Coast Guard's moves were legal, saying the Filipino vessel crossed into Chinese waters. We urge the Philippines to avoid such actions, and the actions of China's staff are professional and restrained, Wang said during a briefing. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken may meet China's top diplomat Wang Yi at this year's Munich Security Conference amid tensions over alleged aerospace incursions by high-altitude balloons. Relations between the two countries suffered a blow after the U.S. shot down what it says was a Chinese spy balloon that had drifted into American airspace earlier this month. China, meanwhile, has accused the U.S. of sending at least 10 balloons into Chinese airspace in 2022. Nazvi Karim reports.
The balloon mysteries high in the skies over the United States and possibly China have generated more questions than answers amid mere fragments of information coming from the Biden administration. However, when it came to one particular question, that of a Hollywood-like alien invasion, the White House was quick to provide clarity.
There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity with these recent takedowns.
With that out of the way, Washington is hoping to focus on the entirely serious task of repairing ties with Beijing after the Americans last week shot down what it says was a Chinese spy balloon that drifted across the continent. Since then, 3 more unidentified objects have been downed in American and Canadian airspace, with both governments hoping that any debris collected would offer clues as to their purpose. Sources indicate U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who pulled out of a visit to Beijing after the balloon entered U.S. airspace, is considering a meeting in Germany with Wang Yi, director of the Office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission of the Communist Party of China. That summit has yet to be confirmed, as China played tit for tat by claiming at least 10 American balloons had crossed into Chinese airspace over the past year. The U.S. needs to make a thorough investigation and give China an explanation on this, Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said today.
There is no U.S. surveillance aircraft over Chinese in Chinese airspace.
Okay, even Chinese claimed airspace.
There is no U.S. surveillance aircraft in Chinese airspace.
The U.S. said it is still examining debris from the Chinese balloon shot down off South Carolina on February 4th. China insists it was a weather airship that was blown off course, while on Monday Beijing said it had no information on the latest 3 takedowns. The most recent one on Sunday was an octagonal object downed over Lake Huron, the Pentagon said. On Friday, an object was shot down over the sea near Dead Horse, Alaska, while Saturday's takedown of a cylindrical object occurred over Canada's Yukon by an American fighter jet. The White House has yet to offer any information on any of these incidents. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Still ahead, a shooting rampage at Michigan State University in the United States. In Turkey, more survivors brought to safety almost 200 hours after massive earthquakes. And locally, a record high number of couples tying the knot on Valentine's Day since the pandemic. Welcome back. 3 people were killed and 5 critically injured after a man opened fire at Michigan State University in the United States. The 43-year-old gunman fled the scene, but was later found dead with self-inflicted gun wounds. Police released this image of the man, who has not yet been named. The suspect was pictured on CCTV carrying a gun and wearing a baseball cap. With officers initially searched the area and later found his body. The incident began just after 8 p.m. when police were alerted to gunfire at the East Lansing campus of Michigan State University. Students were forced to run to safety, with many saying they were caught in a stampede. And there have been more emotional scenes of celebrations in Turkey, with survivors being pulled from the rubble more than a week after the earthquakes. Although amid some of this good news, the death toll continues to rise, with more than 37,000 killed in Turkey and neighboring Syria. An 18-year-old was dragged out of debris after being trapped for 196 hours. That is more than 8 days. He was pulled out from inside the remnants of a building in Adiyaman. Rescue workers were heard cheering. Mohammed Kafir was later carried away on a stretcher and was seen moving his fingers. 161 kilometers away in Kahramanmaraş, another teenager was also rescued. There were reports that his 21-year-old brother was also found alive. The damage in Syria is becoming more apparent after President Bashar al-Assad agreed to open 2 new crossing points from Turkey to the rebel-held northwest to deliver desperately needed aid. In Aleppo, UN aid chief Martin Griffiths toured the area and says the rescue phase is coming to an end, with the focus now on securing shelter, for getting food for survivors. As Hong Kong's largest national security trial continued today, one of the 47 former pro-democracy figures facing subversion charges, Au Nok Hien, testified as a prosecution witness for the second day. Au testified how some candidates were invited to participate in the 35-plus unofficial primary election. Jackie Lin reports.
Among the 47 Democrats and activists involved in the political trial, 16 have pleaded not guilty to subversion charges. For the second day, former lawmaker Au Nok Hien was summoned to testify as an accomplice witness for the prosecution. Au said at a Mew gathering with Pan-Democrats in January 2020, veteran Democrat Lee Wing-tes suggested the now disbanded political group Power for Democracy could be responsible for the registration and promotion of the 35-plus primary election. Lee also suggested Au be the coordinator of the poll, which Au agreed to. In February the same year, Au and former law professor Benny Tai met with Civic Party chairman Alan Leung, who referred them to attend a meeting with the party's executive committee. There, they introduced plans about the 35-plus primary and consulted opinions from Civic Party members, including Audrey Yu, Tanya Chen, and Jeremy Tam. Au said Benny Tai mentioned if they won a majority in LegCo, they could exercise the power granted by the Basic Law to veto the government's budget twice, dissolve the legislature, and force the chief executive to step down. Tanya Chen has reservations about the idea. She said the Civic Party planned to nominate Gordon Lam as a candidate for the catering sector, and Lam had to take into account their industry's interests, hence it might be harder for him to veto the government's budget. They also had qualms about using the e-voting system, worrying that it would favor more radical politicians. Au said he and Benny Tai also reached out to other potential candidates for the primary. They included former district councillor Fergus Leung and an ex-spokesperson for scholarism, Prince Wang Ziyut. And then lawmaker Eddie Chu, who was occupied with his work at LegCo and did not care too much about the plans for the primary. Au also revealed activist Joshua Wong advised against Au's participation in organizing the primary as a friend, as Au was set to study further in Japan. Au and Tai also met with district councillor Michael Pang and pro-democracy activist Fantas Lau. Au said he could see how people he met did not care that much about vetoing the budget because such moves had been made by the opposition before at LegCo, and it was fine every time. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
iCable Communications has announced it will terminate cable TV's pay television service from June 1st after it received the government's approval today. iCable cited changes in the media landscape and intense competition as reasons for the decision. Its vice chairman, Patrick Chung, said the move will enhance resource efficiency of its media business so as to take on new opportunities arising from structural changes in the local free television market. The company still operates some free-to-air channels, as well as broadband and telephony services, among others. iCable said it will handle arrangements for existing subscribers in an appropriate manner. And today is Valentine's Day, and a favorite wedding date for many couples. According to the Immigration Department, 248 couples registered for marriage today, the highest number tying the knot on Valentine's Day since the start of the pandemic. Mimo Singhai tells us more.
Valentine's Day symbolizes love and romance, with many couples using this particular day to show their love for each other. This morning, the atmosphere was joyful outside the Tim Sa Joy marriage registry, with couples arriving to get married. Mr. and Mrs. Tang was among the first to arrive at the registry. The husband said they wanted to get married on Valentine's Day because it is meaningful, making it easier to remember their wedding anniversary in future. Some couples invited friends and family members to the registry to celebrate the happy moments, something the public could not do during the pandemic. The Immigration Department said 248 couples wanted to register for their marriages today, twice as many as last year. On Valentine's Day, roses are in demand as they symbolize love. At the flower market in Mong Kok, roses come in many colors and designs.
For my girlfriend, around 500.
Some people had work in the morning and could only come to the market during their lunch break.
Because I have the free time in this time, so I come here now.
With Hong Kong dropping most of its COVID restrictions, many people came out to buy flowers for their loved ones, hoping to surprise them. Mimosa Nai, TVB News.
That's the news. Happy Valentine's Day. Have a great evening. Bye for now.